Hello everyone and welcome to another lecture of PHP and MySQL. So we are learning, or we learned in the last lecture, how to install the MySQL or the PHP MyAdmin control panel and how to use it. But before that, I just want to tell you a very simple explanation of what a database is capable of. Okay, so any interaction that a user has with the web or with a website, any type of interaction can be stored on a database. So let's say type in something like in Google search query here. Everything that you type here will be stored on a database. And I can guarantee that Google has a very large database about your queries throughout all your life. So that's why they know so much, and that's how they control basically all the queries in the world. It's a very powerful information, and you can do the same on your website. So if you have a website or a web application, you can store anything you want or any interaction that the user has with your website, either sending login information or register information, or how many times the user access your website, what is the page that the user sees the most on your website, how many times he spends on your website, how many clicks he does on your website, who does he interact with. Basically everything that a user does on your website, you can store that on the MySQL database. And later you can use that information for anything you want, okay? Nowadays, information is very valuable for ads and marketing. So make sure you create a cool or a very well-structured database for your web application. And obviously, depends on the web application or the website that you are creating, you'll be creating a different type of database for it. So if you are creating a simple, store or simple website that sells some products, maybe you only need to store the sales or the prices. And if you are thinking about creating something really big like a social network like Facebook or some large platform with a lot of users, you'll need a very well structured MySQL database with a lot of tables and a lot of different configurations. Okay, but we'll get to that later on. Let's start with the basics first. So let's go to localhost and PHP MyAdmin. So here on the left side, you have some examples of databases. Okay, these are the databases that we have. So CityCool is a database, and then you have CDs. And when creating names for databases or tables, it should only contain letters, numbers, or if you want to use spaces, use the underscore, okay? Don't leave spaces in blank. You should also avoid using names that SQL functions has or SQL terms. Also, the names of tables or databases should be treated as case sensitive. And basically make sure you use names that you will remember and they are unique for you or for your project, okay? So in order to understand the structure of a simple MySQL database, let's create a new one, a new database, okay? Let's call this my first database. Okay, let's click create. And there it is, my first database, okay? Here you have it, perfect. Now let's click my first database, let's click there, okay? Now you need to create tables, okay? Tables are where you store the different type of data or information. For each table, you can put as many columns as you want. And in order for you to understand this, let's create a table first. So let's call this table users. Okay. Now users will have several information for each user, which will be the name, the email, the first name, the last name, the password, etc. So let's create, for example, 5 columns. Okay. Let's click go. Okay, you'll get to this page where you have to give all this information to the database. So the first thing you're going to have is name, and let's give it the name for the first column ID. The second, let's put first name, and here let's give second name or last name. In here, let's give it an email, and then you can type something like, yeah, we can give the password here. Okay. Now, for each type of information or data here, you have different types of configurations that you need to choose. Okay, so if it is, for example, a date or an email, you have to choose different configuration. For ID, which is going to be a number, we will choose varchar, which means various characters. Okay, so we have integer, which is the int, varchar, text, and date. Okay, and then you have several other options here, but the most used options for now are date, text, varchar, and integer. Okay. So for ID, let's use the varchar, which means various characters, numbers, or strings. And for the rest of it, you can use varchar as well. Okay. Because some people may use numbers and characters, strange characters for names and on emails as well. So varchar for everything, password varchar as well. Okay. Cool. Length values. Here's where you can give a limit of length for the characters. Okay, so you can limit here, and we can type, for example, limit. Let's type 100 for each one of them, which is pretty much or too much. Let's give it a 50. Okay, 50 characters long. And remember this, because later on when you are creating PHP connections with MyAdmin or MySQL, if you have a limit of 60 on your PHP script and you have 50 here, it will cause problems. So remember they have 50 as a character limit in your database. Okay. Now default, let's give it, let's leave it none. Collation, you can leave this as it is. Attributes, let's leave it as it is. Index, let's give it a primary key to the first one, which is the ID. This means that this is the main key or the main identification for each user. Okay, so you can also choose here AI, which is not artificial intelligence, but it's auto increment. Okay, it will auto increment every time a user registers or sends a new information. Okay, so for each user you have a different ID at all times. Then you have here MIME type. This is for when you want to store files. There are image files like PNGs or JPEGs. We'll see this later on, not now. This we don't need it as well. We will check this later on. And I think we are done with this. You can put some table comments, partition definition. Okay, let's save this. Incorrect column specified for column ID. Okay, let's change something here, which is causing problems. Instead of primary, let's leave it as with nothing. Let's leave the auto increment and change the varchar to integer. Okay, let's go back and save this. Okay, now we are done. Perfect. So now we have our database ready with one table only for users, and each user will have the possibility to send us information or to complete a form, and then we will store all that information from the form with a first name, last name, email, and a password to this table, okay, using PHP. So let's click my first database. Let's click users, and then if you see, if you click users, you'll see columns and indexes. Click columns, and there you have it. ID, then first name, last name, email, and password. Okay, this is what we have to store from a form that we will later create on our website. If you want to put some more fields into this table or columns, you can basically add here one column at the end of the table or at the beginning. We want at the end and after password, and click go. Okay, so the name will be registration date, so we know when the user registered. And here let's type date. Length, let's put 50 as well. Default none. And I think we're done. Yes. Okay, let's save this. Okay, let's go back to columns. And there it is. Okay, so this is all for now. And in the next lecture, we'll continue with this little project. See you guys later. Bye.